Good evening. This is time for episode 22 of Life Lived series, and I have titled this Giants. And one of the constant themes that I've had on this is finding out who you are and being centered. And I think, obviously, that that's very important. And the reason that I call this Giants is because I want you to be your own giant, right? Because by standing on your own and being the biggest that you can be can make you feel incredible. And, you know, there's a saying that a lot of people have heard regarding giants. It's standing on the shoulders of giants. And I like the phrase. It actually comes from a different topic, but I still use the phrase here today because the origin, just to give you an idea, the origin of the saying "standing on the shoulders of giants," according to Wikipedia, is in reference to, or basically the metaphor of dwarfs standing on the shoulders of giants, and to express the meaning of discovery, truth, by building on previous discoveries. And when that kind of comes into play, right? Because we're trying to learn who we are through what we go through on a daily basis. And as we continue to grow, we're able to see and understand and deal with the future better than we can today. And the other reason why I wanted to call this Giants is because it's important to realize how important you are in your own life. And by being able to not only stand on your own, but also, be your own person in your own world can be pretty magnificent. Of course, it's a tough road to get there, and I'm hoping by listening to this is helping in one way or another, but a lot of it starts, at least in my experience, dealing with everything internally and then being able to handle and deal with everything that comes at you based upon who you are, how you see yourself, how you respect yourself. And I'll do an episode on respecting yourself as well. But for this, I really wanted to kind of reiterate a lot of what I've talked about, and also considering where you are today, how you can continue to grow, and how we don't have to rely on other people to be the best that we can be. If you're someone who's been constantly bullied, or you're constantly depressed because of some aspect of your life or you, then by you becoming not only your own self, but also becoming your own giant, it allows you to kind of recognize the significance of yourself, whether you be alone or whether you be in a crowd of people. Kind of like a giant. They're mythical creatures, clearly. But if we think about, a city filled with hundreds and thousands of people, and yet there's one giant who can essentially encompass that amount of space as those thousands of people, and also, how they stand out. Now, when I'm referring to a giant, I'm not talking about having people look up to you or be able to recognize you, but it's more of you in the sense of being yourself and standing out in your own self and being out there, being you. And I think that just encompasses a lot of what I've talked about. So how do you become a giant? Obviously, this is going to be an evolution of you on a daily basis. And it really does start with you finding the core of you. And if we think about a giant, and we think about the small things that come at us in life, well, if we're little and we look at ourselves as meekish and vulnerable, then anything that comes at us, anything, a tiny little poke or prod, can really be detrimental. It can make us feel detrimental. But if we think about that as you and us being giants, then a small poke or prod really doesn't have any significance whatsoever. And so that's why, again, I kind of like the idea of becoming your own giant, because it can apply in so many different factors. Again, how you see yourself being big and being strong willfully, and not you looking at others, but you looking inside to see the better part of you. And I say this every episode multiple times. I understand how difficult it can be to constantly have something negative hit at you every single day, to think by listening to me for 5 minutes, or if you've listened to every single episode, that things are going to immediately change. And I don't have that as an expectation for you, and you shouldn't either. But what I want you to see, and hopefully learn by listening to all of this, that what seems big and important right now is not the biggest and baddest part of your life. Because, again, you don't know where your life is going to be tomorrow, the next day, a month, a year, 10 years, whatever it might be. And it's really trying to understand and deal with that. Now, I don't know if any of this that you've listened to, if you've thought that it sounds like I'm trying to have you be an introvert, because that's not my goal. As a matter of fact, it's somewhat the opposite. I'm not wanting you to become an extrovert, but I'm wanting you to be comfortable with who you are, regardless of the situation or environment that you're in, and being able to deal with what's coming at you on a daily basis. So, I focus on looking inward and paying attention to who you are, because it makes things easier. I mean, if somebody comes up to you and says the same thing that they say to you every day that's hurtful, if you think about it and you're aware of yourself and your feelings, it's easier to understand how you're going to handle it. If, however, we don't pay attention to those feelings and those thoughts, when we have things come at us, we don't really know how to deal with it other than shut down and become depressed or get angry or think bad thoughts about ourselves, or begin to agree with what they're saying about who we are. And so clearly that's not a way to be. But if by being able to look inside of yourself and truly understand who you are, and I know you might be one of the people who sit there and think, well, I don't even know who I am. How am I supposed to be able to understand and appreciate who I am if I don't even know who I am? But I think that that's also a key point. I didn't learn to know myself fully, even today. I mean, every day is something new that I learn about myself. But with that being said, being able to start to think about yourself earlier in life makes things a lot easier as you continue to go along. For me, like I said, it was later in life. I recognized things were going on, and I had many suicidal tendencies and trying to really harness and grasp who I was. It just wasn't until later, again, that throughout life I realized that the pain that I was feeling that day or that year or last year or 2 years or the last 5 years, it really isn't that significant in the overall theme of life. And that's why I want you to constantly think inward. It's not about becoming an introvert. It's about becoming you. And in order to be able to do that, you've got to realize who you are. And you got to realize what affects you. I mean, if if you ever have an emotional moment where you cry or you get upset at something that somebody said, and it doesn't have to be about you. Actually, let's just take that off the plate. Let's say that you are, whatever the situation might, let's say you're hypothetically reading a book or watching a TV show or a movie or what have you, and something in that scene or that chapter or that paragraph makes you emotional. Do you ever stop to think about why? Like, what about those words, that phrase, or that view, or that vision, or whatever it is around you that's happening in that moment that makes you emotionally upset? Not in an angry way, but to tear up, right? Or even if it happens to be watching a sunset or staring at a leaf or whatever it might be, in that moment, have you ever thought about why? Why is it making you feel that way? And if you do know, that's great, right? Because it's a number of things, right? Typically, if it's something that you're reading or seeing or experiencing, it's because it's something that resonates with you. And the more that you find around you that resonates with you, the more that it affects you. But if you begin to allow other people outside of you to force their opinions and their thoughts and their ridicule upon you, you being upset with yourself about what they're saying is not you being upset for you. And so it's important to realize emotionally what makes you feel the things that you do and why you do. So I use, a book or a poem or a TV show or a movie or whatever it is, something that's made you emotionally tear up, and recognizing why that is. Because it is a part of you, and it's an emotion that is very important. And the whole thing about emotions is really finding what they are and what they mean to you. So that's just a single example. But what I'd stress for you to do is start to think about, in these particular moments where you're mad, angry, sad, depressed, what is it, not what is it outside of you that's making you feel those things? What is it about those things inside of you that are making you feel that way? And are they viable? I mean, is that, somebody saying a negative thing about you, is that a viable reason for you to become depressed or shut down or sad? It's just one example to think about. Now, I'm not saying words shouldn't be upsetting to you, because obviously they're hurtful. But I still think a lot of it comes down to knowing who you are and becoming your own internal giant and building you out of you to stand above the crowd. And no matter what small poke or prod comes at you, it's minuscule. So I know that I, on an episode basis, harp about looking internal and finding out who you are. I think one of the main reasons why I harp that home is because everything, for the most part, outside of you, you don't have control over. Secondly, by letting these external resources affect you, it affects how you look at yourself and also how you look at other people and treat other people. Like I said, because I was picked on for so long, for a very long time, it was difficult for me to go into a crowded room and not immediately put up a shield and find something wrong with everybody in the room. And because of that, it has taken me so long and so many years to be able to not do that. And now I can't lie to you, because it's something that I've done for 10 for tens of years. It's a hard habit to break. But as I look back at all the things that I have lost out on in life, that's the reason that I do this, to hopefully, put a pin in your life map, to hopefully start to make a change long before I did. And even if you haven't, the whole point is starting sometime, starting somewhere, so you're able to start to rebuild these aspects of your life. Because the more that you let external people affect you, that is changing parts of you. It changes your personality. It changes how you view the world, how you view other people. It affects everything. But so if you're able to look inside yourself and recognize how powerful you are and how important you are, then listening to what these other people say aren't going to hopefully be as detrimental as they are today. So if we think about where we are today and where we're going to go, because if you're listening, you're always thinking, well, you keep saying, look to the future, look inward, look to the future, look inward, things change, yada, yada. Where does that fit into life today? And there's really not an answer, because every one of your minutes and moments are different than mine and than everyone else's. But look at it like this. You don't know what you're fully capable of. And I say that because if you think about, let's say, iconic people in the world and throughout life, I mean, if we look at, let's just say, Steve Jobs, for example, just because he's a very popular person, or Bill Gates, or, somebody that most everybody is aware of, I'm sure at some points in their life that things have been hard, that they have been picked on, that they stood out. I mean, if you look at the, how do I put it? If you look at Steve Jobs and the ideas that he's had, and if you've watched any of his documentaries and movies and things like that, it's interesting to see how he has been throughout life. But everybody looks at him and what he's done and accomplished. And when we think about, let's say, somebody that is iconic as that, because what he did to technology and the phone industry is magnificent. But do you think that he knew that that's how his life was going to turn out? No. Do you think that he had any idea anything in his life was going to turn out the way that it did? Probably not. Was he driven? Sure. But the point is that, he had success and failures in the beginning. And if he wasn't aware of who he was internally and what he could accomplish, any one of his failures in the beginning could have prevented him from creating what he's created. And I'll only use this as an example, again, because it's just a person that most everybody's aware of, at least the company Apple, and, how they've kind of revolutionized some of the technologies in our life. But you could apply that to anybody. The point is that you right now aren't aware of what you can accomplish because you haven't experienced all of life. And throughout your life, you'll never experience all of life. But I hope that regardless of how depressed, how dark, how dim, or how suicidal things around you might seem, I just hope that you don't do anything drastic or do anything to hurt yourself. And now, taking that one step further, let's say hurting yourself. Okay. Let's say that you decided to physically harm yourself. And by physically harming yourself, some people find satisfaction in that. I don't. It's not something that I understand. But I say this because I use this as an example, because if you continue to harm yourself and you continue to scar your body, it can make things more difficult later in life, depending on where you want to go, where you want to be, the people you want to be around, the people you want to meet, what you want to accomplish. And I only say that because you don't know, again, where you're going to go, what you want to be, who you want to be around. But there are certain things that you can do to yourself that will prevent you from going down certain paths. Or if it not prevent you, it will make it more difficult. My goal, which I have several for this, is to try to help make the easiest path in life. And, depression can really drive you to do things that you would one day regret. And so, if we do something today that we're not aware of, that we're going to regret, and 5 years down the road, that is now impeding the direction of our life, or a particular instance in that moment, we can't go back and change it. And so, as hopefully you are starting to look inward and appreciate and love who you are, and at least find something about you that you love and appreciate, that's hopefully something that you're going to continue to build on as you grow and as days go on. And the more that we can do for ourselves, and the less that we can do that would prevent our lives from moving forward, hopefully the better. You don't know who and what you're going to become. And you might think, well, I live in the middle of nowhere, and there's what is there going to be for me? And the answer is you literally don't know. You don't really know who can come in your life tomorrow, how things can change. And so it pains me to think that there would be someone out there who would think that because of their current situation, that they think that there's not going to be any type of positive outlook on their life, and therefore why continuing to live? Because you don't know. I can't find sometimes to put it in words, but it's just amazing the way that things can turn out. No, not everything turns out great. A high percentage of what you experience in your life isn't going to turn out great, but it's also not going to be terrible. It's just going to be there or indifferent. It's like having to go to the DMV. It's there, it's indifferent, we have to do it, and, we just deal with it. But then there are things that we could do to prevent ourselves and our life from growing and continuing down an easier path. Let's just continue with the DMV, for example. We all hate going to the DMV. We all hate standing in line and paying fees and taxes on cars. So, hypothetically, let's say that we think we're going to take the easy route and just not worry about renewing tags and insurance and everything else. Well, then now, several months down the road, things can become much more expensive. They can now take a lot more time to recover from, if you got pulled over and got a ticket, or if you continue to get compounded interest on your property taxes and things like that. My point is that there are things that we can do on a daily basis that might not be enjoyable, and while everything in life is not going to be, being able to continue to do things in our lives that can hopefully make things easier will continue to make your life easier. And so, if we're able to look inside and become our own giant, then life can be a lot easier. I mean, if we're giants, it's a lot easier to get from one place to another because we got fewer steps to take. But if we're going to think small and live small and not look inside ourselves, then every single step we take and every direction we go in is going to seem like it takes forever. And it doesn't have to. I had another thought, and I have forgotten what it is. In any case, you don't know. I mean, even when I say you don't know where life's going to take you. I mean, even if you think about somebody that you look up to, whether it be an artist, whether it be a family member, whomever, and it doesn't have to be somebody you look up to, but it's maybe somebody you appreciate, and you think, I'll never get there. You don't know that. You really don't know that. And, that person that you idolize or you look up to or you appreciate has gone through some of the same things that you're going through. Now, probably not everything, but there are a lot. And it really comes down to, who are you going to come out of this as? Not who are you going to be because of what everybody else has said. And I want the easiest roads for you. And while there are going to be a lot of roads, and there's going to be a lot of congestion, and it's going to seem like you're never going to get out. But you will. Now, that doesn't mean that things are just going to come to you. But you can't determine what's going to be tomorrow. And so the reason I made this statement of, things aren't just going to come to you. Some things in life are, but not everything. And so, we want to be able to grow as people. We want to be able to appreciate who we are internally. And that way, everything that's outside is less painful. And it doesn't hit us as hard as it used to. In the first couple of episodes, I talked about understanding where bullies are coming from, or people who pick on you, or people who make you feel down. And typically those people end up having a harder time in life, especially if they continue to be that same type of person. And the great thing about you is that over time, you're going to be more confident than they ever were, and that they ever are, because of you taking the time to learn you. When I talk about the people who typically bully other people, it's because of other things that are happening in their life. And those people just don't understand how to deal with it. So what they end up doing is, of course, taking it out on other people. And they typically regurgitate the things that they've heard or seen. And it is horrific to be on the end of all of those statements and the ridicule that comes with it. But because you are learning to be who you are, and learning who you are makes you so much smarter and stronger than any of those people, because you're taking the time to find you. And not only that, what's going to happen is, okay, so what's going to happen is by spending your time on learning who you are, you're going to learn to do things that you like to do. And you're going to eventually do things that are out of your comfort zone that you might be amazingly good at. And then maybe those things, whether it be the difficult things that you're great at doing or the things that you've always loved to do that you've just become greater at, those are going to lead you down different paths to meet different people. You're going to have different opportunities. You're going to possibly become an expert in whatever it is that you love and enjoy. And people are going to slowly start to look up to you. Now, that's not a goal that we're shooting for. In some cases, that is a bonus because, it's an odd thing to go from, being picked on and negative and down about yourself to people starting to ask things about you and asking things that you know. And so I'm using this as an example, but my point is throughout life, the more that you focus on yourself and the more that you recognize about you makes it easier to be able to move forward in life. Not only because we're able to let these negative things that come at us kind of bounce off of us, it also allows us to be able to take time to know who we are and where we want to go and things that we want to do. Versus if we continue to concentrate on all of the negative things that are coming at us and the negative things that people are saying, then we're not moving forward. All we're doing is becoming a smaller, denser ball. And then, then we don't know where to go because we don't know in what direction we need to go in. And then it just becomes more difficult to move. And then it gets to a point where the weight of the world is on our shoulders and it seems like everything is coming at us every single day and we don't know how to deal with it. And so we're just going to sit in this ball and not move. And then everything around us just becomes dark. And so I don't want anybody to be in that place. And you might be in that place. But I'm hoping by me telling you that you recognize how important you are and continuing to move is extremely important. Take yourself from being this weighted down ball of mass and start to move and start to go in any direction. The point is that you're at least taking a step. You're at least going in a direction that is not stagnant where you are, because nothing good comes from being stagnant. And so it's only something that by at least listening and hopefully doing some of the things that I say in your life, you'll notice over time. Of course, this isn't going to be immediate. Trying to change who you are emotionally does not change overnight. Trying to get rid of everything that you get hit from in all directions is not going to disappear overnight. But you are going to be amazed at what your life has become in a fairly short amount of time. And that's what I wish I could, first off, be there for all of you. If you are in a mass and you are in a ball, to help push you along, at least to get started. And then I wish that I could be around all of you when you have that epiphany and you recognize that one day that you've woken up, that things are going and you recognize that they're going in the direction that you want them to and that you've always wanted them to. And so I hope the best for everyone. And I don't know if that sounds silly. It's truly honest what I mean. And I hope over time that it's something that you might even pass on to other people. Because I think one of the things that we have lost sight of as people is who we are. And if you think about that, if everyone was aware of who they are and what their feelings are, then they would be aware of everyone else around them and how they could be affecting how they feel. And by knowing how you feel, you can understand how others might feel. Now, of course, I wish that I could be talking to all of the bullies and the people who like to single out other people to change who they are. But that's just not realistic. I mean, maybe somebody out there has become a bully and they don't really know why or how to stop. And I hope that this can be helpful to make them realize, by looking and understanding who they are, they're affecting not only themselves in a negative way, but everybody else around them, including you and me. And they can wreak havoc across your entire life if you let it. And I just don't want you to let that happen anymore. So I want you to slowly stand and become your own giant. Hold your own hand. Be your own set of shoulders to stand on. Because you are all magnificent. And I hope that one day you all see that. Well, I'm at 36 minutes, and I'll go ahead and cut this or end this. And I hope that it was helpful. Again, if you've got any questions, please feel free to email me at lifeliveseries@gmail.com. I try my best to do this live every Tuesday and Friday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spreaker. And as I've mentioned before, this goes out to, I tried to at least send it out to every possible way that could be helpful for people to listen to if you needed to have access. So we just recently got accepted into iHeartRadio, and we've been in iTunes. Within the past month or month and a half, we got added to Google Music. So I'm trying to make this as readily available for you as possible. So please reach out to me. If you just need somebody to talk to or ask a question to, or you have a topic you want me to discuss. Until then, thank you and take care of yourself.